Good morning. Get everybody in. How is everybody doing today? Everybody awake on this Monday? Let's see. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12. We got 2 more. I know that Sadie's not going to be here today. And then let's see. I've got Kinsley and Evelyn and Claire, Mark, Grant, Chad. I've got my King sisters, Zoe Owens. Do I have Zoe Owens? That's who I'm missing, is Zoe Owens. Okay, so hopefully she'll join in just a minute. All righty. So we're going to go ahead and get ready and start going over our homework. The only thing we had for homework was our test. Hopefully you got that all finished and uploaded and all that good stuff. I'm sorry, I think it was late last night when I added the test spot to upload. So you may have already uploaded it and put it with homework, and that's fine. I'll pull it out of there if that's where you uploaded it. You don't have to re-upload. So anyway, we'll get ready and go over our homework. Any questions about anything before we get started?
I had uploaded my pack to the 17th and then my test to, I think, the 21st. So those are just separate. So I just wanted to let you know because I thought that might be a little confusing.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that. So I'll look in both locations for all that. Okay. I know on Thursday we had started with our clearing our equations of fractions. So that's what we're going to start off with today, is going ahead and check in that homework that we had, and then we will go from there. We'll continue practicing with it. We're going to do a little bit of review of where we've kind of been in this chapter, and I've got another packet to send to you to print out after class today. We're going to work some of the problems during class time, but I'll send that to you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick to pull up the homework so we can work through that. Algebra 1, we've got to get pages, and this was from lesson. The homework was actually what, on page 22, or I'm sorry, 42. I don't know, I said 22. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and erase this so we can look at them. I'll probably have to work on at a different location if we have to work any. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a look at this homework. The first one was 5 plus 14 over x equals -2. So to be able to work this problem, the first thing I had to do was I had to clear my fraction. by multiplying both sides by x. So I multiply x times 5, x times 14 over x, and negative 2 times x. So I end up with 5x plus 14 equals negative 2x. Okay? Then I want all my x's on the left-hand side, so I add 2x to both sides. So I have 7x plus 14 equals 0. Take away 14 from each side, and I have 7x equals negative 14. Divide by 7, and x is equal to negative 2.
What page are we on?
This is the homework that we had was on page 42. We had 4 problems on page 42. One of the things I want you to notice is whenever my denominator is the same as what I'm multiplying by, I know that when I clear those denominators, or when I multiply x times 14 over x, then I'm just going to have my x's are going to clear and I have just 14 left. Okay, so that's kind of a, once you understand the process of it, you can kind of see how you can move a little bit quicker, because when you multiply that x times 14 over x, the x is clear and all you're left with is 14. Okay, any questions on that problem? All right, let's go to the one below it. I'm going to erase that real quick so I can have room. Okay, so 14 plus 37 over x equals 9 over x. Again, I have the common denominator of x, so I multiply my entire problem by x. X times 14 is 14x. X times 37 over x is 37, because my x's cancel. X times 9 over x is going to be 9, because my x cancel over there as well. So I have 14x plus 37 equals 9. I'm going to subtract 37 from each side, and I get 14x is equal to, now I've got a positive and a negative, so I have to think about my rules. I have opposite signs, so I take the sign of the larger, which is negative, and I find the difference of my numbers, which is 28. Okay? Remember, my whole goal is to solve for x. X is being multiplied by 14, so I have to undo that by dividing by 14. So x is equal to negative 2. Any questions on that one? Anything that I did that you didn't understand, or anything that when you worked the problem you missed it and you're not sure why? Okay, let's move on to the right-hand side. Now on these, I've got x squared in my denominator, so I need to check on those. Let me send just a quick message to make sure. Oh, I think, where did it go? I think it said Zoe had joined the Thursday. Let me send a message real quick. Let's see. Oh, here she comes. There we go. Hey there, Zoe. I was just getting ready to send you a message. I saw where you had joined the Thursday instead of Monday.
My dad just fixed it for me. I was like, there's something wrong here. I know it.
Well, we were just going over our homework that's on page 42. Okay, we just went over the ones on the left-hand side.
Okay.
And we found that x equals -2 for both of those on the left-hand side. And now we're getting ready to work the ones on the right-hand side. All righty, so I see that I have denominators of x and x squared. And remember, when I have variables with exponents as denominators, I'm going to choose the one that has the highest exponent. So that is going to be x squared. So I multiply everything by x squared. So I need to distribute that to the first term, the second term, and to the right-hand side. All right, now one of the things I notice here is when I multiply x squared times 23 over x, when this denominator clears out, I still have one x left over. So that's going to be 23x minus, then x squared times 9 over x squared. My x squares cancel, and I have a 9 left. And then on the right-hand side, -4 times x squared divided by x is going to give me -4x. Any questions on how I got there?
Miss Jennifer, I don't like know what to do because I haven't been here all week.
Okay, so what,
And you forgot to put it on screen share.
do what now?
You're not putting it on screen share, so you're saying you're working it out, but he can't see it, and neither can we.
Oh, you can't see it? I thought the screen was shared. Sorry. I thought it must have gone off because it was sharing earlier, wasn't it? Okay, so Chad, have you gone back to watch the video from last Thursday or from last week?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so what you're going to need to do to be able to get caught up is to watch those videos. And so what we'll be doing is we'll try to get you caught up a little bit through this, but what we'll need you to do is go back and watch the videos to get each step right. But basically what we're doing is right now, we're clearing equations of fractions. Now, can y'all see it? Maybe that makes a little more sense. So real quick, Chad, what we were doing here is to be able to work an equation that has fractions, we've got to find a common denominator that will allow us to eliminate the fractions in the denominator. So when I'm dealing with a variable with an exponent, I have to look at the exponential value that is the largest, and that here is x squared. So that means I have to multiply every term of my equation by that value. So when I multiply x squared times 23 over x, that ends up being 23x squared over x. So then this x cancels, this one becomes x to the first, so I end up with 23x. Are you good with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll just watch the video.
Okay, and then I multiplied x squared times 9 over x squared. So x squared times 9 over x squared is going to give me 9x squared over x squared. X squared x over x squared cancels because that would be 1, and 9 times 1 is 9. So that's how I ended up with my second term. Then the same thing with -4 over x times x squared. That's going to give me -4x squared over x. When just like when we were dividing our monomials last week or week before last, x squared divided by x, I subtract the exponents. So that would be x to the first. So this ends up equaling -4x. So that's how I ended up with my last term. Zoe Owens, will you go ahead and mute your thing because we're getting a little bit of feedback? Thank you. Okay, so now I have 23x minus 9 equals -4x. My whole goal is to solve for x. I like to go ahead and work it to where I'm getting all of my variables on the left-hand side and all my constants on the right-hand side. That just helps me do that. Now I could solve it with my variable on the right-hand side and then for my answer, just transfer it over. It's totally up to you how you want to do that. But I typically am going to start by moving my variables to the left-hand side. Because I have negative 4x, because it's negative, that means to move it, I have to add 4x to each side. So 23x plus 4x is 27x. I still have minus 9 on the left-hand side, but negative 4x plus 4x equals 0. So I have 27x minus 9 equals 0. Again, I want my constants to be on the right-hand side, so I'm going to move that negative 9 by adding it, plus 9 plus 9. And come over here. So I have 27x equals 9. Remember, my goal is to get x by itself. Right now, x is being multiplied by 27, so to undo that, I divide by 27. So x is equal to 9 over 27. But remember, when I'm dealing with fractions, I always need to do simplest form. Okay? And I know that 9 is divisible by both 3 and 9. 27 is divisible by both 3 and 9. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the largest number, so I only have to do one step. And 9 divided by 9 is 1, and 27 divided by 9 is 3. So on this one, x is equal to 1/3. Any questions on that problem? Basically, I'm working like 3 problems, 4 problems in one, because I'm not only am I having to do like this is step 1, this is step 2, step 3, and then solving the equation step 4. So it's a good bit of work here, okay? But you just have to take it step at a time. Looking at our last one, again, I have x, x squared, x, and x squared. So I know my largest exponent is x squared. So I'm going to multiply both sides by x squared. When I do that, that means I have to multiply every single term by x squared. Every single one of my equation. So that means x squared times 33 divided by x is going to leave me with 33x. X squared times 13 over x squared. My x squareds cancel, and I'm left with just 13 equals 6x times x squared is going to leave me with 6x when my x's cancel, plus 5 over x squared times x squared is going to leave me with 5. So my equation I'm now working with is 33x minus 13 equals 6x plus 5. Any questions on how we got there? Okay, again, I'm trying to solve for x, so I want to move my variables to the left-hand side. I've got a 6x on the right-hand side, so the way I move it is to subtract it. And 33x minus 6x is going to give me 27x minus 13 equals 5. All right, I have a constant on the left-hand side, negative 13. The way I'm going to move it is I'm going to have to add it. Plus 13 plus 13, so 27x equals 18. Trying to solve for x, so I need to divide by 27, divide by 27. So x is equal to 18 over 27. Again, whenever I have a fraction, I've got to look and see if I can simplify. I know that 18, my factors are 2 times 18 and 6 times 3. I look to see 2 times 18, 2 times 9 and 6 times 3. So I think of my factors of 27, and I know that's 3 times 9. So they're both divisible by 9. 18 divided by 9 is 2. 27 divided by 9 is 3. So x is equal to 2/3. Any questions on that one?
No, ma'am. But I wasn't there for the last one on the left-hand corner. Can you redo that one?
Sure, the last one on the left.
Yes.
Okay, so 14 plus 37x equals 9x. Our common denominator was x. So when I multiply x times 14, I get 14x. When I multiply x times 37 over x, my x's cancel and I'm left with just 37. When I multiply x times 9 over x, again, my x's cancel, so I'm left with 9. So I have 14x plus 37 equals 9. I move my 37 by subtracting from both sides, and I end up with 14x equals 28. Then I've got to divide both sides by 14, and I end up with x is equal to -2. Any other questions? All righty. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring up these pages, and we're going to kind of do a quick little review walkthrough on some of this, and I will be sending this to you. Alrighty, so what I want to do is the first thing, your first page that you'll end up seeing is multi-step equations. And basically this is just to kind of continue to give us some extra practice on moving things around from side to side, using inverse operations to be able to solve for x and looking to see what needs to be moved, okay? So when I'm solving equations, the first thing I always want to look at is, can I simplify before I get started? Is there anything that needs to be simplified by maybe combining like terms, using the distributive property, whatever it is, okay? So if we go ahead and look at this first one, I can see that I'm going to need to combine like terms over here. So I'm going to have -20 is equal to, and -4x minus 6x. Remember, if I've got -4 minus 6, that's the same as -4 plus a positive 6. So, actually, let me just rewrite that real quick so you can see. So that would be -4 minus 6 is equal to -4 plus, I'm sorry, I did that wrong, plus a -6, okay? Because this sign is what changes there. And so that leaves this guy by itself that's positive, so then we have to take the opposite, so that would be negative. Okay, so -4 minus 6, or -4 plus a -6 is -10. So now we have -20 is equal to -10x. Again, I like to move my variables to the left, so I'm going to add 10x, add 10x. So I have 10x minus 20 is equal to 0. I add 20 to each side, so I end up with 10x is equal to 20. Divide by 10, divide by 10, x equals 2. Okay, so when you see your multi-step equations, the first thing is going to be to simplify if you need to. So I'm going to go ahead and write this at the top. First step, simplify. Step 2 will be to solve. Okay, so simplify if you need to, and then solve. Let's see, let me go down. Let's look at number 11 here. And if you want to work on these on just a piece of paper right now, and then you can transfer it over to your worksheet if you want to later. So notice with number 11, there's something different here, and that's that negative sign in front of my parentheses. If you see a negative outside of parentheses, we want to treat that as a -1. Okay, so a negative by itself, just floating out there, is the same as having a -1 there. So now if I change that to -1, I can see that I'm going to need to use the distributive property here. Okay, so I have 14 is equal to -1 times p is going to give me a -1p, or just -p, and -1 times -8 is +8. So do you see how that negative in front of the and in front of the parentheses changes my positive p to a negative p and my negative 8 to a positive 8? So basically, by distributing that negative, it just changes the signs of everything inside those parentheses. Then I can add p, so I have p plus 14 equals 8. Take away 14, take away 14, and p is equal to a negative 6. So if I just have a negative sign outside of parentheses, that just means I'm going to have to take the opposite of everything inside parentheses because it is the same as multiplying everything by a negative 1. If we look at number 13 here, you can see in my first step, like I said, I need to simplify. Simplifying includes using the distributive property just like we did in number 11. Here, I just have a regular number 6. So that means I have to distribute that. So I have negative 18 minus 6k is equal to 6 times 1 is 6 plus 6 times 3k is 18k. So I have simplified first. Now I want to move my variables from the right to the left. My variable on the right-hand side is 18k and it's positive, so that means I move it by subtracting. Notice that when I move it, I always put it underneath the like term. I put it underneath the term that is like it. So I have negative 6k minus 18k. So remember, a negative 6k minus an 18k is going to be the same as negative 6k plus a negative 18k. So I have negative 18 minus, I have, what is that going to be, negative 24k is equal to 6. So now I'm going to, because 18 is negative, I move it by adding it, plus 18 plus 18. I'm going to come over here and move this. Negative 24k is equal to 6 and 18 is 24. I need to isolate k, so the way I'm going to get k by itself, because it's being multiplied here, I'm going to divide by negative 24, divide by negative 24, so k is equal to negative 1. So in that, I had to distribute first. Once I had distributed and I got my equation, then I start moving things from side to side. Any questions on multi-step equations like this? Any questions on how to know what to do, or is everybody pretty comfortable with that? Okay, so our homework for this page, like I said, I'm going to be emailing this out after class. This will be 2 through 20 evens. And then anything extra that you do will be bonus, okay? All extras are bonus. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and work on the next sheet that has us clearing fractions. Okay, so definitely go ahead and get out a piece of paper for this one. Even if you didn't for the last one, go ahead and have your notebook ready, have a piece of paper, something, so you can write these down, so that way all you have to do is transfer the answers over. Okay, so our first one is 3/4 t equals 2/3. Having 3/4 right next to t implies that I'm multiplying, so you could also read this as 3/4 times t. So 3/4 t equals 2/3. All right, I have denominators of 4 and 3. Remember, we talked about how we always want to look and see, can I use one of my numbers as the denominator to multiply everything by? And I've got a 4 and a 3. I know that 4 will not divide into 3 evenly, and 3 will not divide into 4. So I start thinking of either multiples of 4 that 3 will divide into, or multiples of 3 that 4 will divide into. And then we also talked about how, you know, last resort or even first resort, whatever you want to do, you can always just multiply the two together to find your number to multiply everything by. And 3 times 4 is 12. So that means I'm going to be multiplying both sides of my equation by 12. So I'm going to be doing 12 times 3/4 t and 12 times 2/3. All right, so what I'm going to do, so you can see, I think what we've done previously is we've been able to cancel out everything, and it's been pretty easy to see. Here, this just means I have 12 times 3/4 t equals 2/3 times 12. Okay, so I'm multiplying both sides by 12. And I can see that 12 times 3 is 36. So we'd have 36 over 4 times t equals 12 times 2 is 24 over 3. So now I'm going to start simplifying. And I've got 36 divided by 4. What is 36 divided by 4? 9. So I have 9t is equal to, and 24 divided by 3 is 8. Okay, so 24 divided by 3. So now I have 9t equals 8. I'm trying to solve for t. It is currently being multiplied by 9. So to undo it, I have to divide by 9. Divide by 9. So t is equal to 8 over 9. Again, I want to look at that and see, can I reduce 8/9? There's no factors in common with 8 and 9, so I know that that is going to be my final answer. Questions on that one? Okay.
Why
Let's
did
go
you
ahead.
use 12?
I'm sorry?
Why did you use 12?
The reason I used 12 because my denominators were 4 and 3, and I had to come up with a number that both of them would divide evenly into to be able to clear it all in one step. Okay? Really quick, I'm going to show you something that you could do, but it's going to take a whole lot more work. Okay? Let's say that we couldn't come up with 12, and I know that I have a denominator of 4 and a denominator of 3. I could actually do this in 2 steps, and I could say, let me choose a different color so it'll stand out differently. Okay, so if I had 3/4 t equals 2/3, I could start by multiplying everything by 4 because that denominator is 4. So I know that I'm going to have 3/4. My 4s are going to cancel, and I end up with, whoop, hold on, I want that to go away. Okay, my 4s cancel, and I end up with 3t is equal to 8 over 3. Okay, because 2 times 4 is 8, and my denominator would be 3. Then I could multiply everything by 3 to get rid of this denominator. These 3's would cancel. So then 3 times 3t is 9t equals 8. Divide by 9, t equals 8 over 9. So I could multiply everything by one denominator and then multiply everything else by the other denominator. So I could actually do it separately, or I can do it all in one step by finding something that both denominators will divide evenly into. And since 4 times 3 is 12, I know that 4 will divide into 12 evenly and 3 will divide into 12. So that's where I got 12. So I can either find a number that they both go into and do it in one step, or I can break it apart and just use this denominator and clear that fraction, then use this denominator and clear that fraction. Okay? Either way, I'm going to end up with the same answer. I can either do my denominators together or separately. You do what's most comfortable for you. Everybody has different learning styles. Everybody has different ways of doing stuff. So I wanted to be able to show you both ways. If you're not quite understanding why we're picking a number to be the number we multiply by, then you can just break it apart and do it in 2 steps. So let's look at number 2. I have a 3 and a 5. I want to think of what number will 3 and 5 both divide into evenly. Or I can just say, hey, what is 3 times 5? 3 times 5 is 15. So that means I can multiply everything by 15. Or if I wanted to multiply 3 by 3 first and clear that denominator, then multiply by 5 and clear that denominator, I could break it into multiple steps. All right, so 15 times 2/3. So I've got 15 times 2/3 is equal to 15 times negative 3/5 t. So negative 3/5 t times 15. Again, we just understand that my whole numbers have a denominator of 1. So if you want to put that 1 there, just so just so it kind of helps you numerator by numerator, denominator by denominator when you're multiplying fractions, that's up to you. So 15 times 2 is 30, and 1 times 3 is 3, equals negative 3 times 15 is going to give me negative 45 over 5t. Okay, so all I did here is I multiplied 5 times 2 to get 30, and negative 3 times 15 to get negative 45. So now I'm going to do my clearing. And I know that 30 divided by 3 is going to give me 10. And negative 45 divided by positive 5 is going to give me a negative 9. And I have my t with my negative 9. Now this is one of the things where if you wanted to flip-flop your things, you could. If you wanted to flip-flop your variable to the left-hand side and your constant to the right, you can. I'm going to go against my OCD that wants me to move that variable to the left, and I'm just going to work it as it is, but then we'll fix it in our answer. So I'm going to have to divide both sides by negative 9. So now I'm going to go ahead and flip my t to the left-hand side and say t is equal to negative 10/9. You can either leave it as an improper fraction in lowest terms in simplest form, or you could go ahead and change that and have it as negative 1 1/9. You could change it to a mixed number if you want to. It's up to you. As long as it's an improper fraction, it just needs to be in simplest form, or you can change it to a mixed number. Any questions on that one? All right, let's look at number 3. Negative 5/6x equals 3/4. All right, so I have a 6 and a 4. I want to think of what number will both of those evenly divide into. Again, I could multiply them together and get 24, but that's an awfully big number. I want to see if there's something smaller. So I'm going to think of multiples of 6. 6 times 1 is 6, not divisible by 4. 6 times 2 is 12. Oh, hey, wait. That's divisible by 4, isn't it? So the smallest number that both of these will both divide evenly into is going to be 12. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 12. All I did was start saying my multiples of 6. 6 times 1, 6 times 2. And once I came up with a number that both numbers will divide evenly into, I can stop. I'm going to multiply that 12 times negative 5, 6, x equals 12 times 3 over 4. 12 times negative 5 is going to be negative 60 over 6x equals 12 times 3 is 36 over 4. Negative 60 divided by 6 is negative 10x is equal to 36 divided by 4 is 9. Now I've cleared my denominators and I'm ready to start solving for my variable x. I have negative 10x on the left-hand side. The operation between negative 10 and x is multiplication, so I undo it through division. So I divide by negative 10, divide by negative 10. Those are going to cancel, so x equals negative 9 over 10. Remember we talked the other day in class that it doesn't matter where my negative is. Negative 9 over 10 is equal to 9 over negative 10, which is equal to my negative floating out in front of 9/10. Either way, all of those are correct. Don't get hung up on where you need to put your negative. Again, my preference, I just put it in the top, okay? I want you to go ahead and work number 4 on your own. Work number 4 right now, 3/4 x is equal to 1/2. Think about what number you're going to have to multiply everything by to clear that denominator. And go ahead and work on that. Okay, so I have a 4 and a 2. So like I said, I always want to look and see, can one of these numbers be used? And I know that 4 will go into 4 one time and 2 will go into 4 2 times. So I know that 4 is divisible by both 4 and 2. And so I'm going to go ahead and change my pen so it doesn't overlap. So that means I can use 4 as my number to multiply everything by. 4 times 3/4 x and 4 times 1/2. Again, I multiply numerator by numerator, denominator by denominator. If I want to put that 1 there to hold my denominator place. 4 times 3 is 12 over 1 times 4 is 4. X is equal to 1 times 4 is 4 and 2 times 1 is 2. So now I have 12 over 4x. Now I want to go ahead and simplify these. So 12 divided by 4 is going to be 3x is equal to 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I have 3x is equal to 2. So I need to divide by 3, divide by 3. So x is equal to 2/3. How'd you do? Any questions? Any
My
trouble?
denominator is wrong, but I got the numerator correct.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
My denominator was wrong, but I got the numerator correct.
Okay, so what did you use as your denominator?
I had the 1. I think I stepped.
Okay, yeah, because the whole thing is you got to look at these two numbers. You got to look at your 4 and your 2 to determine what you've got to multiply everything by. If you just multiplied by 1, it's not going to be able to clear that. Huh?
I multiply by 4.
Okay.
I used 8 to multiply into everything, but I still got the same answer.
Absolutely, because like I said, you can always multiply these two together, and 4 times 2 is 8. You're still going to get the same answer because there's only one answer, one correct answer for this problem, but there's a couple of ways that you can go about it. Like I said, you could use 4, you could use 8, you could use the number 16. Both 4 and 2 are divisible and will go into 16. If you use any multiple that both of those numbers will divide evenly into, you're going to get the same answer. Okay? So good. All right, now let's go ahead and look at this one. I'm going to erase this underneath here so I can see my problem.
Miss Jennifer, it's break time.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. Go ahead and take a 5-minute break. All righty, everybody ready to come back? I know you're not necessarily ready to come back, but I need for everybody to come back. All right, at least turn your camera on for just a second so I can make sure that everybody's back so I don't start without anybody. And then if you like cutting your camera off, you can cut it back off. I just want to make sure everybody's back.
I'm here. My computer just doesn't have a camera.
Very good. Jonas, you back? King sisters, are y'all back? I didn't quite understand that, but I guess that means you're back.
We're here.
My King sisters are back. All righty. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next one at number 5. All right, so I have a denominator of 5 and 2. One of the things that looks weird here is that 2y out there, okay? But it doesn't have a denominator, so right now I'm not stressing about that. I'm just looking at my 5 and 2. Again, both prime numbers, so I can know, and I know that my smallest number that both of those are going to divide into is going to be 10. 5 times 2 is 10. Again, that's always just a fail-proof way of determining what number to multiply everything by is to multiply the two together, and 5 times 2 is 10. So that means I'm going to multiply both sides by 10. Now notice I have two terms on the left-hand side. So 10 times 2y is 20y minus 10 times 3 over 5. 10 times 3 is 30. Have my denominator of 5 equals 10 times 1/2 is going to be 10 over 2. Notice that I kind of took it down a step. I took a step away. I didn't write it out like this. I'm trying to transition us to doing a little bit more efficiently. Okay, so I said I know that 10 times 2y is 20y. 10 times negative 3/5, I just multiply 10 times 3, that's 30, and I keep my denominator of 5. 10 times 1 is 10, keep my denominator of 2. Now I can start to simplify. 20y minus 30 divided by 5 is 6 equals 10 divided by 2 is 5. Now I can go ahead and start solving. I already have 20y on the left-hand side, but I have a negative 6 with it, or a minus 6. So I move it by adding. So 20y is equal to 11. Y is being multiplied by 20, so I divide by 20 to get rid of it. So y is equal to 11 over 20. 11 is prime, so I know that there's nothing that I can divide into it that will also divide into 20. So there is my final answer. Okay. I'm going to go ahead, we'll do 2 more and then we're going to move on to our next section. Okay, so let's do number 11. All righty. So again, this is all looking super weird. Okay, so what I'm going to do first, before I can start clearing my fractions, is I need to distribute first. So I need to multiply 2/5 times x, so that's just going to be 2/5 x minus, I'm going to multiply 2/5 times 2. Again, all I'm doing here is I'm multiplying my numerator by 2 to get 4, keep my denominator, because that would be the same as if this was 2 over 1, then 5 times 1 is 5. Same rule for multiplying. Equals -3. Okay, all I did was distribute 2/5 to each term. Now I look at it and I can see that I have denominator of 5 in each of these. So I know I just need to multiply everything by 5 to be able to clear those denominators. 5 times 2/5 x, 10 over 5x, minus 5 times 4/5 is going to be 20 over 5, equals 5 times -3, -15. Now I can start simplifying. 10 divided by 5 is 2, so I have 2x minus 20 divided by 5 is 4, equals -15. I've eliminated my denominators. Now I'm able just to solve my fraction. My equation. All right, so I look at what I want to move first. I already have my variables on the left. I've got a -4, so I need to move it by adding. So now I have 2x is equal to -15 plus 4. I have opposite signs, so I keep the sign of the larger and then find the difference of the numbers, and the difference of 15 and 4 is 11. 2 is being multiplied by x, so I have to divide it to isolate x. So I end up with x is equal to -11 over 2, or if you wanted to change it to a mixed number, you could. You don't have to, but it would be, I'd go ahead and put my negative out front since I know it's going to be a negative answer. 11 will go, 11 divided by 2 is going to be 5. And 1/2 is my remainder. So I could either leave it as -11 halves, or I could change it to a mixed number as -5 and 1/2. Any questions on that problem? The first thing we did was simplify by distributing. Then we were able to clear the denominators, clear the fractions, and then solve for x. I'm going to jump down to I'll do number 15. All right. I've got variables on both sides, and I have 3 fractions to clear. But fortunately, those 2 are both 5s, so I'm not having to find a common denominator for 3 different numbers. Those are both 5s, and that one's a 3. So I can multiply 5 times 3 is 15. So I'm going to multiply this side by 15, this side by 15. So that means I have to multiply 15 times 1 over 5m. So that's going to be 15 over 5m plus 15 times 2/3. 15 times 2 is 30 over 3 minus 15 times 2 is 30. So I had 3 terms on the left-hand side that I had to multiply 15 by. Remember, I can always tell the number of terms that I have based on they're all separated by plus and minus signs. Now I've got to multiply 15 by m.
I need your consent on it.
And 15 times m will be 15m. And then 15 times 2/5, I'm going to have minus 15 times 2 is 30 over 5. I've multiplied, so now I need to start simplifying. And 15 divided by 5 is 3, so I have 3m plus 30 divided by 3 is 10 minus 30 equals 15m minus, and 30 divided by 5 is 6. Now notice over here I have a positive 10 minus 30. So I want to go ahead and simplify that. So 3m, take the sign of the larger, which is a negative because 30 is bigger than 10. Find the difference, which is 20, equals 15m minus 6. Now I've done all my distributing, I've done all my fraction clearing, I've done all my simplifying. So I want to start working it. I want to go ahead and subtract 15m from the right and the left. So 3m minus 15m is going to be negative 12m minus 20 is equal to negative 6. Negative 20 on the left-hand side needs to move to the right-hand side. I move it by adding. So negative 12m is equal to negative 6 plus 20 is going to be a positive 14. divide by negative 12, divide by negative 12, m, sorry about my phone ringing, equals 14 over negative 12. Now, one of the things that I told you guys here is if you want to leave it as an improper fraction, you can, but we have to simplify it. So I have 14 and 12, which I know are both even numbers, so I know they're both divisible by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by 2, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. 12 divided by 2 is 6, so I can leave it as negative 7/6, or I could go ahead and change it to an improper fraction. 6 will go into 7 one time with 1 left over, so I'd have negative 1 1/6. Okay. So when I send you this, and like I told you, this is what your assignment's going to be. This is going to be to work on all week. Okay. So actually, and what we'll do is I'll be giving you assignments from your packet, but we will wait and make it due on Thursday of next week when we are back at the co-op. So you don't have to worry about uploading and all that stuff. Plus it gives you time. Since the, multi-steps is a little bit of a review, multiplying or clearing our fractions is kind of our skill that we're working on right now. The skill we're getting ready to work on is clearing decimals. And you can see where we're actually going to be clearing decimals and fractions in a little bit. So we're going to be working on this through this packet for a little while. So do not worry about uploading any of this packet work to the website, okay? We'll turn it all in if we have it all finished by next Thursday, but you can just wait. You don't have to show me that you did it for homework right now. That doesn't mean put it off, because you definitely don't want to have it all to do at the last minute. Plus you want, you want to be sure to be able to ask questions if you're stuck on anything. But the main thing is just know that this isn't all going to be due on Thursday, and you don't have to worry about uploading everything, okay? So we already talked about the first page. 2 through 20 evens is your assignment here. On this section, your assignment is going to be let's see, I kind of messed it up by doing some evens and odds. We'll go ahead and do the left-hand side. I'm sorry, that would be the right-hand side, my other left. The right-hand side of page 1 will be your assignment. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 6 through 10. We will leave numbers 12, 13, 14, and 16 will be bonus. Those are the more challenging ones. Those are the harder ones, so you can leave those as bonus. We won't have anything that's difficult where you're having to distribute and everything like that on the test, okay? So 12, 13, 14, and 16 will be bonus. And like I said, I will, actually what I'll do is I'll go ahead and also email y'all this document that I'm writing on, so you'll have it to look at when you get your document, okay? All righty. So now let's go ahead and turn in our book to lesson 19, and that's going to be on page 41. We've already been working with clearing fractions, and in this section we are going to learn how to clear our equations that have decimals. And I promise this one's going to be easier, or at least I hope it's going to be easier for you. Okay, so like we know that when you probably know, we're in Algebra 1, so you should know by this point how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide using decimals. But a lot of times when we are adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing using decimals, things can get a little messed up, okay? Especially if you're dividing and you forgot to move your decimal on the outside of the problem, which means you have to move your decimal on the inside of the problem. Or if you're adding and subtracting and you didn't line everything up correctly, there's a whole lot that can go wrong working with decimals. So to work with decimals in an equation, it's a whole lot easier It is much easier to solve the equation once all the decimals have been eliminated. So what we're going to look at now is how to eliminate our decimals, okay? And so it says to eliminate decimals, first find the term with the greatest number of digits to the right of the decimal point. So I'm looking at my numbers and I'm seeing which one has the most digits after the decimal, okay? So then depending on how many digits are after the decimal, I multiply the terms on both sides of the equal sign by the power of 10 that number has as the exponent. So what that means here, let's just go ahead and list them out, okay? Where do I want to do this? Let's just do it right here. I'll make a little box right here, okay? If I have 0.1, what place value is that? What place value is one place after the decimal? It's my 10th place, right? Okay, so if my digit is in the 10th, then that means I would multiply by 10 to get rid of that decimal. Okay? Let's say I had 1, 1. That number is in the 100th place. So to clear 2 decimal places, I would multiply by 100 to clear that decimal. What if I have 3 decimal places? What do you think I would multiply by? 1,000. Okay, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10,000. I'm not gonna, we shouldn't have anything that big. Okay, I think most of them, the highest you're gonna see, now I'll have to look at the packet. In the textbook, the highest you're gonna see, I think, is 2 places after the decimal. But the main thing is the number of places after the decimal multiply by power of 10. So basically this is 10 to the first place with 1 decimal, 10 to the second place with 2 decimals, 10 to the third place with 3 decimals, and 10 to the fourth place. So that corresponds with the number of decimal places you have. I've got 4 decimal places here, so that's 10 to the fourth. I have 3 decimal places here, so that's 10 to the third. 2 decimal places, 10 to the second, or 10 squared. 1 decimal place, which is 10 to the first. Is everybody good with that? Does everybody understand what I'm talking about? I want to make sure I explain that clearly and that I'm not confusing you. Okay, so the example they've given us here is 3x plus 2.4 equals 2.94. Or you could read that as 3x plus 2 and 4/10 is equal to 2 and 94 hundredths. Okay, so I look, and this number has 1 decimal place. This one has 2 decimal places. Remember, my rule is that I've got to find the one, I've got to use the one that has the most decimal places. So the most decimal places is going to be the 2 decimal places. So that means I'm going to multiply by 100 because this number is in the 100th place. So that's what they did here. But remember, if I multiply by 100, I have to multiply my entire equation by 100. So that's what we've started with down here. You've got 100 times 3x plus 100 times 2.4 equals 100 times 2.94. So 100 times 3x is 300x. 100 times 2.4. Remember, if I'm multiplying by 100, that means I'm going to move my decimal place, 2 places to the right. So I'd have to add that placeholder 0, so that becomes 240. 100 times 2.94, I'm multiplying by 100, so my decimal moves 2 places to the right, so it becomes 294. So now that I've cleared my decimals, it's a whole lot easier to work 300x plus 240 equals 294. Okay, so I would subtract 240 from each side. So I end up with 300x equals 54. Divide by 300, divide by 300. Remember, you can use a calculator, okay? So here is something I want to tell you, that you can, when you are working on fraction problems, you want your answers to be reported as either whole numbers or fractions. When you're working decimal problems, your answers are going to be reported as either decimals or whole numbers. Okay, so if I'm working decimals, I don't want to have a fraction as my answer. If I'm working with fractions, I don't want to give a decimal as my answer unless my directions tell me to. I always want to go ahead and keep everything with using the same type of problem. So if it's a fraction problem, I want either a fraction answer, or it could be a whole number and I don't even have a fraction. And with decimals, I can either end up with a decimal number or a whole number. Okay. So let's go ahead and practice this, and you can see 54 divided by 300 is 0.18 or 1800ths. So remember, anything after the decimal has that THS on the end of it, so we know that it's after the decimal. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our classwork. All right, so the first step is to determine the number of decimal places I have. I have 1 decimal place here and 1 decimal place here. So the most decimal places I have is 1. So that means I'm going to need to multiply everything by 10. Remember, 1 decimal place, multiply by 10 to the first power. Okay? So I'm multiplying everything by 10. All right, so if I multiply 0.2 times 10, that means I move my decimal 1 place to the right. So now this becomes 2x. 10 times 0.2x becomes 2x. Now I also have to multiply 10 times my whole number of 1. So I move my minus sign down, and 10 times 1 is 10, equals 10 times 1.4. If I multiply by 10, that means my decimal moves 1 place to the right, so 1.4 becomes 14. 2x minus 10 equals 14 looks a whole lot easier to me than 2.2x minus 1 equals 1.4. Okay? It's in a form that I'm more comfortable with. So now I can look at it and say, hey, I've got 2x minus 10 equals 14. That minus 10 needs to move by adding. So 2x is equal to 24. I need to get x by himself. It's being multiplied by 2, so I need to divide by 2, which means I have to divide 24 by 2. So x is equal to 12. Remember, I said when I'm working with decimals, I either want a whole number or a decimal as my answer. We saw in our first example down here, we had a decimal answer. But this time it worked out to be a whole number, and that's okay. I just wouldn't want to report it as a fraction. Let's look at the next one. I have 1 decimal place here, but I've got 2 decimal places here. So I know if I've got 2 decimal places, I know that this 5 is in the hundredths column. So to clear everything, I need to multiply by 100. Any questions on how we decided what to multiply by? Does everybody feel okay about that? The first one, we had 1 decimal place, so we multiplied by 10. This time we have 2 decimal places, so we're multiplying by 100. So I have to multiply 100 times 5x. So 100 times 5 is going to be 500x. 100 times 0.3. I'm going to put my plus sign there. Now, if I multiply 0.3 by 100, that means my decimal moves 2 places to the right. If it moves 2 places to the right and I've got an empty space, I fill it in with a 0. So 100 times 0.3 becomes 30 equals, now I've got to multiply 100 by 2.05. Multiplying by 100 moves my decimal 2 places to the right. So I have 205. Any questions on how we got there? Okay, I need to solve for x. So that means I need to look to see what I need to undo first, and that is going to be adding 30. So I'm going to subtract 30 from each side. So 500x is equal to, what is that going to be, 175? So that means I'm going to divide by 500, divide by 500. I know if I end up with a fraction with a numerator smaller than a denominator, I'm going to end up with a decimal. So I'm going to grab my calculator and I'm going to divide 175 divided by 500. So x is equal to 0.35. Any questions on that? Any questions? All righty. Let's go ahead and work in activities. Activities 2. My first step, I'm going to look at my largest number of decimal places. 1, 1, 1, 1. So what do I need to multiply by? $10. Okay, so I'm going to wipe these out. And multiply everything by 10. When I multiply 10 times 1.1x, that means my decimal moves 1 place to the right, so that becomes 11x. 10 times 0.5, I just move my plus sign down. My decimal moves 1 place, so now that is going to be 5 equals 10 times 0.3x, my decimal moves 1 place to the right, so this is 3x, minus 10 times 1.1, my decimal moves 1 place to the right, so this becomes 11. Everybody good with that? All righty, now we've got to start moving things. I like my variables to be on the left-hand side, so I'm going to subtract 3x from each side. And 11 minus 3x is going to be 8x plus 5 equals negative 11. I've got to move my positive 5 or plus 5. I move it by subtracting, so minus 5 minus 5. So I have 8x is equal to negative 11 minus 5 is the same as negative 11 plus a negative 5. So that's going to be negative 16. Divide both sides by 8, divide by 8, and x is equal to negative 2. I am going to do, we'll do this one underneath here together, and then I'm going to have you guys work on the other two on your own. Okay, so on this one, I've got to simplify first, and I've got to simplify by using the distributive property first. Let me go ahead and change my colors. So I've got to do 3 times x, which is 3x, and 3 times 0.02, I bring down my minus sign. So 3 times 0.2 will be 0.6 plus 0.1x equals 5.6. So the first thing I had to do was distribute on the left-hand side to get everything ready to where I can determine my number of places after the decimal. I can see that each place I have a decimal, I only have 1 digit after the decimal, so that means I need to multiply everything by 10. I have 3 terms on the left-hand side. 10 times 3x is 30x. 10 times 0.6 I have a negative sign. When I multiply by 0.6, I move my decimal one place to the right, so that becomes a 6 plus 10 times 0.1x. Move my decimal one place, so that becomes 1x, or I can just simplify that as x, equals 10 times 5.6, move my decimal one place, so that becomes 56. Now notice on my left-hand side, I've got 30x and I have plus x. So I need to simplify that first. I need to have 30x plus x is 31x minus 6 equals 56. All righty. I need to start moving everything around.
X is positive.
I'm sorry?
X is positive.
Yes, so 30 plus 1 is 31. Are you following?
No, why'd you add X if X is positive?
Because remember, this is the same as 1x. So 30x plus 1x. I'd add, whoop, I forgot my x. Hold on a second. 30x plus 1x. So 30 plus 1 is 31, and I keep my x. So I have 31x right here. Remember, x plus x is 2x, or 2x plus 1 is 3x. So I just add.
Why'd you do that instead of doing something with 6?
Because I was simplifying my like terms first. So when I looked at it, I said, hey, I've got something with an x here and something with an x here on the same side of my equation. So I want to simplify, I want to combine my like terms first before I start moving things around. I go ahead and combine those like terms. Now, in a minute, we'll look at what we could have done if we would have moved 6 first. It really doesn't matter. We'll still end up with the same answer. So we'll look at it if we had done it differently in just a minute. So now that I combine my like terms, I have 31x minus 6. So I add 6 to each side. So I have 31x is equal to 56 plus 6 is going to be 62. Divide by 31, divide by 31, and x is equal to 2. Now let's look at that for just a minute. Had I decided not to go ahead and combine like terms, and I had 30x minus 6 plus x equals 56. Let's say I decided just to move that 6. Add 6, 30x plus x equals 62. So now I would have to go ahead and combine those and have 31x equals 62. Divide by 31, divide by 31, and x equals 2. I'd still end up with the same answer if I started with moving x first, but at some point I have to combine those like terms. I just like to go ahead and do it in the beginning, but even if you do it later in the process, okay? Are you good with why we combine those, Zoe? Remember, like terms are going to be variables that have the same exponent. So both of those are x to the first power. So I can combine those. Or constants, numbers that are just by themselves without variables, those are like terms. So anytime I have more than one term on one side of my equation that has a like term, I want to simplify that. Okay. All right, now I want you to go ahead and work 0.7x minus 2 equals 1.5. Go ahead and work that. Determine how many decimal places you have. What does that mean you multiply by? Go ahead and multiply and solve for x. Let me know if you have questions. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this one. I have 0.7 and 1.5 are my decimals. So how many decimal places? What is my biggest number of decimal places? Just one, right? So that means I'm going to multiply by what? 10. Okay, so I'm multiplying everything by 10. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my parentheses. Put 10 on the outside on both sides, so I don't forget to multiply both sides of my equation. I multiply 10 times 0.7. 0.7 multiplied by 10 becomes 7, so I have 7x. 10 times 2 is 20, so I bring down my negative sign, and I have 20. Now 10 times 1.5 means I move my decimal one place to the right, so 1.5 becomes 15. On the left-hand side, I've got 7x minus 20. I'm trying to get x by himself, so the first thing I'm going to have to do is add 20 to both sides. And I have 7x is equal to 35. Now I need to separate 7 and x. They are being multiplied together, so I separate them by division. And 7x divided by 7 is x, and 35 divided by 7 is 5. How'd you do? Did you do okay? Any questions on that one?
I didn't have zeros or ones, and I just didn't add like the tens part, so I ended up getting 7 times 1 minus 2 equals 5. But
Okay, so you just got to remember that when you multiply by 10, you've got to be sure that you're moving those decimals and not forgetting the number that was in front of it, all that good stuff. So just pay close attention when you're multiplying. Even if you have to come over to the side, I don't know if you had to come over and say 10 times 0.7 and multiply that, and that would be 0 and 7, and then you say, hey, I had one decimal place, so then I find that that's 7. Obviously 10 times 2 is 20, and then 1.5 times 10, put my placeholder 0, and then I'm gonna have 5 and 1, and my decimal goes. So even if you have to, go off to the side and do everything on scratch paper or however you need to do it to make sure you move them correctly. All right, go ahead and do the fourth one on this page. 2.4x plus 0.07 equals 5 times 0.3x plus plus 0.23. Now be very careful when you're distributing right here. Okay, that's going to be your first step. And I want you to be real careful. I do want you to come over here and do 5 times 0.3 and look and see where your decimal goes, and then do 0.23 times 5 here. Okay, so go off to the side and multiply those and make sure you get your right decimal numbers. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. I told you that the first thing you needed to do was distribute this 5 and multiply it by 0.3x and by 0.23. So I said to be sure to come over to the side. So if I have 5 times 0.3, I go ahead and multiply, and 5 times 3 is 15. I look to see how many decimal places I have in my problem, and I only have 1 decimal place in my problem, so my decimal here is 1.5. When I multiply 0.23 by 5, 3 times 5 is 15. Put down my 5, carry my 1. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. Again, I look to see how many decimal places I have in my problem. I have 2 places, so my answer is going to be 1.15. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, and I have 2.4x plus 0.07 is equal to 1.5x plus 1.15. Look and see, did you multiply those correctly? Did you end up with 2.4x plus 0.07 equals 1.5x plus 1.15? Then we look to see how many decimal places do I have that's the most. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. So I can see that 2 is going to be my largest place value. So that means I need to multiply by 100. Multiply this side by 100 and this side by 100. Okay, so when I multiply 100 by 2.4, that means my decimal places moves 2 places to the right. So 1, 2, so that means I have to put a placeholder 0. So 240x plus 100 times 0.07, my decimal moves 2 places to the right, so that's a 7, equals 100 times 1.5, my decimal moves 2 places to the right, so that becomes 150x, and then 100 times 1.5, 2 places to the right is 115. Forgot my plus sign in there. So now I have 240x plus 7 equals 150x plus 115. All right, I need to move my variable 150x minus 150x. So 240x minus 150x will be 90x plus 7 equals 115. I need to move my 7 by subtracting minus 7, and 90x is equal to 108. Divide by 90, divide by 90. So I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator and divide 108 divided by 90 is equal to x equals 1.2. How'd everybody do with that? Everybody do okay? First of all, did you distribute properly? Did you come up with the correct answer? Then did you move everything the right way? And then did you divide for your answer to find the decimal? All right, I know it's time to go. So what we're going to do is our homework assignment, what does need to be finished and uploaded for Thursday is activities 3 on page 42. We've already done the bottom 4 problems with the fractions. We're going to do the top 4 this time, practicing with our decimals. so you can go ahead and work on that. You can also start working on your packet. I will send an email with these directions in it along with the copy of the packet. I will send 2 copies of the packet. The first one will be your blank one to print out. The second one will be the one that I wrote on today so you can see what we did today. Okay, so I will get ready and send those out right now to send them to you. I hope everybody has a wonderful break for lunch, and I hope you have good classes the rest of the day, and I will see y'all back on Thursday. If you need help between now and then, please don't hesitate to let me know. Okay? All right. Bye, guys.
I'm confused what's for homework.
Okay, so for what is homework that needs to be uploaded by Thursday is page 41, the top 4 problems, or I'm sorry, 42. Page 42, we already did the bottom 4 problems last week or we worked on it today. So those top 4 problems multiplying decimals is what's due for Thursday. You can go ahead and start working on your packet assignments, but they're not due until next week. Okay?
But what are the packet assignments?
I'm going to send you an email with that because I told y'all that a minute ago. I'd have to shift documents back and forth, and so I'll just send that to you in an email.
Okay.
But they're not due Thursday. You have time to work on those, but you can get started on them. Okay? But I'll send an email in just a minute. Okay? And if you have questions, let me know, and we can set up a one-on-one Zoom to work through this. Okay? All righty. You got a question, Mark?
Yes, ma'am. When are we gonna get our test grades back?
I will be sending those this afternoon. Your
Okay.
finalized test grades. I'll be sending those this afternoon for test 1, and then I'll be working on grading test 2 as well. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Miss.
All right. Thanks.